Hi guys, Jamie here from JB Motion. In today's video, we're going to be making this. We're going to be taking a detailed look at how we're going to be making this. So we're actually going to be looking at the shapes starting off. These are just some of the shapes we're going to be creating. So we're going to go through each one of those and we're going to see how we can easily create those shapes. And then once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and create the simulation that you're seeing right here. So this is kind of a build-up tutorial to another tutorial that I have coming up. I've lined up for after this tutorial, and that is going to be called stool compositing. So I have just some real video footage of a stool, and we're just going to be employing the same idea as this current tutorial in this next tutorial, if that makes sense. So in this tutorial, as I said, we're going to be creating these shapes. And we're going to be creating this very simple dynamic simulation. And then in the next tutorial, we're going to be using the same shapes and doing some stool compositing. So let's get started on this. Here we go.
Okay, so this is the first one we're going to create. Hopefully we'll get through all of them. I don't know if I will, but we'll see how far we get anyway. This being the easiest one, we'll start with this. So let's go into a new file and we can grab a rectangle spline and turn on rounding. Let's crank that radius up as far as it can go. And let's bring up the height. Now we don't want this to be too big, so let's bring in a figure. And we can just scale everything relative to the figure. Scale that down. And let's set the plane to X, Z. Now let's grab a tube. Let's scale that down. We can jump into our top view here and just position and scale this. We need more rotation segments as well. And let's grab a cylinder, scale that down, and position that as such. And then we can go back into perspective and we can play around with this a bit. We're not going to create exactly what we have here, just kind of more or less. We're just using that as a guide. So we need to extrude the rectangle. Let's select the rectangle spline, hold down Alt on your keyboard and grab an extrude. Holding down Alt automatically adds the spline as a child of the extrude. We can bring down the offset, something like that. Let's make this a bit taller. So I'm just using our yellow circles here. We can increase the height. We can increase the inner radius, or decrease it, I should say, and we can increase or decrease the outer radius as well. So something like that is what we have in our guide. Turn off our work plane. We don't need that. And we're going to have to increase the segments of this. NB in your keyboard to show the segments, show your lines. Let's increase the rotation segments on that. And we can maybe smoothen out the edges here as well by turning on the fillet. So we need to create a hole here. So I'm just going to use a bool for this. Let's just basically click and drag to duplicate this cylinder. Put it there, around there somewhere. Let's turn off the fillet. We don't need that. And we're going to be cutting out of this extrude. So let's middle mouse click on the extrude. Right click and go to connect objects and delete. Let's grab a bool. Hold down Alt if you want. That'll automatically add the extrude as a child of the bool. Then we can make the cylinder a child of the bool. Make sure the order is correct. And now we have a nice hole there. So that's the first shape. Pretty much done. Can increase the height of this maybe. I liked it the way it was before. But that is pretty much the first shape. So let's grab this, not our figure. We don't need him anymore. We just pull this over. Okay, there we go. So the next shape we have is this guy. So we're going to start off with a tube, and we can make that a little skinnier. We can scale it down and scale it up along the height. And let's go and look at our segments. We will grab some, turn off the height segments actually, and crank up the rotation segments. And we can duplicate this. First of all, actually, let's just grab all of this stuff here and put that into a null so that we are not getting confused by our objects there. Get rid of our figure. We don't need him anymore. So let's duplicate this tube. So Control-C, Control-V, hit R on your keyboard so we can rotate that 90 degrees. Hold down Shift to rotate in increments of 5 degrees. Let's bring this down. And then let's make that a bit longer. Control-C, Control-V again. Hit R on your keyboard and rotate, holding down Shift again for those rotational increments of 5 degrees. Okay, cool. Let's grab both of these, bring those up a little bit. Okay, so now we can stick this into we'll do file, save as. Let's save this to a place. So this is my old one. We're going to go, we might as well put it in there. We'll just call it shapes 2. Okay, cool. So let's grab now a volume builder and a volume mesher, and make sure that the volume builder is a child of the volume mesher, and we can grab these and put them as children of the volume builder. So it's all disappeared. We need to decrease the voxel size, bring it down to like 0.5. Let's turn off our lines. Something like that is what we're getting first of all. Let's grab a smooth so we can smoothen everything out. That's looking pretty close. We could bring down the voxel size to 0.2. Maybe not that much, 0.3. Maybe even 0.4. I think I like that. And we want to create some holes here and here. So let's grab a cylinder. Before we do that, let's just turn off this so it's not calculating. We'll grab a cylinder and we'll make it a child of this tube 2, which is, let's see, where's tube 2? Where did tube 2 go? Hang on, bear with me. So let's try that again. We're grabbing a cylinder, making it a child of tube 2. And let's see if we move the cylinder over here. Okay, so tube 2 is this one. That's fine. So now what we want to do is reset the transform, basically using this. We want to align the cylinder to this. So we can, I'm not sure where the reset transform button is, but if you hit Alt 0, that's the shortcut for that. Then we can scale that down. You can see that it's aligned now to that tube 2. We can scale that down. If we jump into a better view here, we can actually see what we're doing. We might increase the rotation segments on this, smoothen it out a bit. And we want to just kind of, I suppose, bring up the height of this. That's the radius. This is the height. Yellow circle. Okay. So now what we can do is basically make the cylinder a child of the volume builder, and turn back on these two, the mesher and the builder, and go into the builder, and we're going to bring this down underneath our smooth, and then we can set this to subtract. So now it's going to subtract a nice smooth hole for us. Just need to duplicate this cylinder. Let's do a file, save, and duplicate this cylinder. Hold down Control, click and drag, and just pop it in as a child again of the volume builder. We're going to bring this under and we're going to subtract it again. We just need to rotate this 90 degrees. and hold down shift to get those 5-degree increments. So there we have. Okay, we need one more of these. So let's duplicate this again. Undo, or duplicating this cylinder again, making it a child of the volume builder. So I'm just holding down control, clicking and dragging, and then we're going to rotate it this way this time, this cylinder. We're going to be rotating this 90 degrees this way this time, so we can get the hole up there. And we need to, again, go into the volume builder, bring this underneath the smooth and set it to subtract. So now we have holes in each of those directions. We want to add like a little lip as well to the top of this. So you can see we have this kind of a lip sticking out of the top part here. So what we can do is jump back in. Let's duplicate this tube and make sure it's still going to be a child of the volume builder. And we can scale this down and just kind of push it up a bit so that we're going to get that lip there. And we want to smoothen it out. So if we go to our object tab, turn on fillet, maybe crank this up a little bit more, the radius, and just push that up a bit. Something like that. And okay, so we don't want to see it all the way down here, so we can reduce the height of this. Let's go for something like 10 and just push that up. Okay, cool. So that's that. Let's push this. Let's grab at this. And we don't want this volume builder, volume mesher to be calculating constantly. So what we can do is hold down control in the volume mesher, click and drag. Let's turn these off. And we can put this into a folder called mesher builds. If we need to go back to that, we can. But with this, we have, with this, we have, where did we put it? Oh yeah, we duplicated it here. So we can just middle mouse click, right click, go to connect to objects and delete. So now we just have this solid piece of geometry, and it's not going to be calculating over and over again because we've turned off the volume mesher and the volume builder. So next up, we have this guy here, this kind of worm looking shape. So let's grab a sphere and we can scale this down and we can clone this. So with the sphere selected, hold down Alt, grab a cloner, automatically adds it as a childhood cloner. Set this to linear and we can bring down the distance along the y-axis there between each clone. And let's bring this up to something like that. I think it looked like 7. And we want to actually create a spline to get the bend in this. So let's jump into this front view here and let's grab our pen, our spline pen tool, and we can just click and click to create a nice curve. Hit escape on your keyboard. We're going to turn the cloner mode to object, and the spline will be the object that we're going to be cloning along. So that's pretty cool. So we have this kind of gradual increase of size. So to do that, select your cloner and we're going to grab a step effector. And you can see that it's already doing that for us with regards to the scale. I mean, you can bring that down a little bit. Maybe we have like less clones. Something like that. And if we go into our step effector, go to the effector, we can kind of like mess around with the spline graph here, just so we can get a kind of more, I don't know, a better effect, I suppose. I want to like scale this one like down a little bit more, so it's kind of like, I don't know, a bit more worm like. And yeah, That's pretty cool. So we want to get the edges, we want to get it nice and smooth along the intersections here. So again, we're just going to grab a volume builder and a volume mesher. Make the mesher a child of the builder. No, actually make the builder a child of the mesher, I should say. And let's bring this cloner and be a child of the volume builder. So we need to crank down the voxel size. We'll try 0.4. And let's grab an SDF smooth as well. Cool. Okay. So let's grab all of these objects that we used to create this, or let's just actually duplicate the volume builder volume mesher, and we can turn these all off. Or no, not all of them just yet. We need to middle mouse click, right click, connect objects, and delete. Now we can go into object mode. Now we can just grab all of these. We can turn these all off. So it's not calculating again, and just grab all of these as well. Hit Alt G, and we can pop that into our mesher builds null as well, just in case we want to go back to that as well. Cool. So that's another shape done. Oops. Let's go into object mode. Make sure we're in a selection tool here. Let's grab this and bring this over. We need to make sure that this is a single object as well. Let's just click and drag to duplicate that. We'll bring this null. We'll turn off the visibility and pop that into our mesher builds, even though we didn't use a mesher for it, but anyway. And then let's just middle mouse click, right click, connect objects, and delete, so that this is just a single object. So each of these are just single objects. Cool. So let's do a file save, and next up we have this one. So it's pretty similar to this. It's going to be, I suppose it's going to be a sphere, scaled down, and we're going to clone it, holding down Alt with it selected. This time it's going to be a radial clone. Let's set the plane here to be facing us, and we can mess around with the radius and the count on this. So something like that. And we have a kind of a gap here. So what we can do, I'm just going to scale this all up. What we can do is grab our cloner, and we can select the clones that we want to disappear. So we can go to MoGraph selection, and if we just say select these ones here, maybe not that one, maybe just this little quarter of them there, and then we go into our cloner. Let's grab a plane effector. Let's turn off in the parameters. We're going to turn off position. We're just going to be affecting the scale absolutely, or uniformly, I should say. Set that to -1. And you can see that that's just making just the ones that we've selected disappear. So if we go into our plane, and if we go into effector, you can see that that MoGraph selection that we created is in there under selection. If we delete that, then everything disappears, because the plane effector, if we turn that on and off, plane effector is making everything scale of -1. So we just want to make sure that that MoGraph selection is in our selection under our effector tab under our plane. And again, we're going to grab a volume mesher and a volume builder. Make the cloner a child of the volume mesher. Set the, I always get those two mixed up. So the volume builder has to be at the top, the volume mesher underneath. No, the volume builder has to be underneath and the volume mesher has to be at the top. Okay. So the volume builder, then bring down the voxel count to maybe 0.4 again. And let's grab SDS smooth to smoothen that out. Okay. Now you guys are going to notice that this is a pretty high, it's a pretty dense mesh. You can fix that if you middle mouse click. I'm just going to drag this down, turn this off, pop this into our mesher builds so we don't have to worry about that calculating. Middle mouse click on this, right click, connect objects and delete. We can bring down the mesh density here if we grab a remesher. Where are you? The last one you check as usual. So hold down Alt and make sure the volume mesher basically is a child of that. And we can bring down the mesh density to like 5%. That's going to calculate. And you can see now we get a much better looking mesh. It's a lot less dense. But I'm not going to be doing that. You guys can work away, but I'm pretty comfortable knowing that the new Cinema 4D simulation and dynamics is like well capable of handling these crazy high segments. I should be optimizing the scene, but I'm just kind of skipping that part just for the tutorial's sake. Let's turn off our lines and let's move this in object mode. Move this out of the way. Let's actually grab all of these, kind of push them over. Okay, this one is next. So I don't know if we need to do this really, because basically it's just what we've done here and then another one, except instead of, you're going to be cloning radially, but you're just going to have a count of 3 and these spheres are bigger. That's pretty much it. Then smoothing it out with volume builder, volume mesher. This one, I mean, we should have done this one. You can just duplicate that and get rid of the selection, the MoGraph selection. This one is pretty simple as well. You grab a torus. Let's just play with the inner and outer radius here and the scale. Make it more like a thicker donut-y kind of a look. And then there probably is a way to do this with the cloner, like with regards to cloning it. What I did was I just kind of like messed around with it. I just duplicated it like twice. Then I just started kind of rotating it. Again, this is probably not like the most sensible way to do it. And then I like just grabbed this one, or actually I would delete that. I'd grab this one and then just duplicate that. So it's kind of like that, I suppose. That doesn't even look great. So let's try it the sensible way. We'll undo a bunch of those steps. And what we could do is we can make this editable. Hit C on your keyboard, just so we're able to move the axis handle. So if we turn on enable axis or hit L on your keyboard, we can just bring this to around, say, here. So now when we like transform the rotation in the using our cloner, it's going to rotate just around that point because we want them each of them to be connected at around that point. So let's grab now a cloner, hold down Alt again, and let's set this to radial. Bring down this, bring down the count to 3, play around with the transform, something like that. Yeah. Let's play with the radius again. Okay, cool. So again, we want to smoothen that out. So we're going to grab a volume builder and a volume mesher. and I'm going to get it right this time. I'm going to make the volume builder a child of the volume mesher and put the cloner into the volume builder. Let's bring the volume builder down to 0.3 and grab an SDF smooth. Let's bring that up a bit, 0.5. Okay, we might want to increase the segments on this. So let's just, we've already made this editable. If we hit NB on our keyboard, turn these off. Let's just grab this and hit US to increase the subdivisions. And let's see if that actually does anything for us. Turn off your lines. Yeah, it looks a bit funny. Let's try 0.4. Nope. 0.6. Yeah, that's way better. See if going up seems to be the way to go. That's nice and smooth looking. Let's try mean. No, back to Gaussian. Okay, cool. So again, duplicate this and let's turn this one off. Put that into our where is it? Our mesher builds. And I'm going to bring this down to the bottom. And this one, you can middle mouse click, right click. And so we're middle mouse clicking so that we're selecting the top object and all the children. Right click and connect objects and delete. I think we have something turned on here, do we? Let's grab this, go into object mode. Okay, so we have enable access turned on. Turn that off. Now we can grab that. I don't know what this is. This is just straggler. Turn that off as well. Or it's not a straggler. It was a part of our build that we didn't make invisible. So that's that object. That object. That's that object. Okay, so we're getting a good few shapes in here. It's looking pretty good. So next we have this guy. This guy looks nice and easy. So this is going to be, it's going to be a disc or a cylinder, I should say. Scale this down. Let's actually grab all of our guys that we've done already. Move these over. Make some space for this new guy. Bring that down, increase hit NB so we can see our rotation segments, increase those. Going to smoothen out those edges, go into caps, turn on the fillet. And we want to have a little kind of a dip, what would you call that? Kind of a dip. So let's just scale this actually up a little bit more. Maybe up a little bit for the height as well. Grab a sphere. Scale this down. So if we kind of do it like this, I don't know if that dip is going to be enough. We can kind of squish our sphere. If we go into object mode, then we can squish this down back into model mode. And we can then get a bit more of a greater radius in our dip. So that's cool. And we don't need to make that. We could have done that by making it editable, but at least now we have access to all of our segments and all that good stuff. So let's grab again, volume builder and volume mesher. Make the volume builder a child of the mesher, sphere and cylinder a child of the builder. Go into the builder and set the voxel size to 0.5. Then we're going to set the sphere to subtract. Let's turn off our lines, NA on your keyboard. And let's grab an SDF smooth for this. Smoothen that out. Cylinder feels a bit too tall, so I'm going to bring down the height a bit. And I'm going to have to bring up the spheres along the Y position. Might scale it up actually as well. So we get more of a greater radius of our dip. Or no, actually that's not going to work. So we need to squish it more. Go into object mode. Let's go into our scale, squish that down. And then we can just push that down. So we get a more wider dip, we'll say. Cool. Okay. So again, let's just click and drag this, hold down control so we're duplicating it, turn off these, middle mouse click, right click, connect objects and delete. Let's pop this into our measure builds and we will have that if we need it. So next up we have this guy. So similar idea to this, except we're just going to be cloning a bunch of cylinders and you know, we're going to be using a cylinder. We're going to be cloning a bunch of cylinders using a grid. And you're just going to be subtracting it using your volume builder and your volume mesher. Okay, so let's push this out of the way. And we can have a look at all of our lovely shapes. They look really nice and they're all kind of in a row. Okay, so I think I'm going to make this the last one because we are over half an hour at this stage. I didn't want to spend too long on this kind of part of the tutorial, but it gives you guys an idea of how easily shapes can actually be made. Hopefully you guys will be able to just make these based on what we've done already. This one, again, I mean, I say it's tricky, but they're all the same concept, same idea. So we'll just end it with this one. This will be the last one we'll do. So as you can imagine, it's going to be a cube and we want to round the corners. So turn on fillet. Let's crank this. Let's crank up the fillet radius and turn on our lines so we can see that we're going to have a few more subdivisions. Something like that. That was a funny that. It's almost a song. Let's grab a sphere. And let's scale this to around here. Let's grab a volume builder and volume mesher. And make the builder a child of the mesher. Sphere and cube, child of the builder. Go into the builder, set the sphere to be subtracting something, and it's on top of the cube. Let's grab an SDF smooth. That is killing us. So we need to reduce the voxel size, bring it down to like 4. Let's bring it down to like 2. Okay, so maybe the happy middle. Let's bring down the radius of the sphere. Something like that. And we can thicken this up as well because it's a bit thin. So if we go into our volume builder, we can grab a SDF dilate and erode. So that gives us a bit more thickness. You can see there, crank this up to like 8. I kind of liked it actually where it was 5. And again, let's just control, duplicate that, control and drag, basically duplicate it. Let's turn this one off. And we can pop this into our mesher build, just in case we want to go back to any of these. If we want to make any changes to those. And then middle mouse click on this one and we can connect objects and delete. Now we can scale this down. Let's turn off our lines, NA on your keyboard. Scale this down and make it kind of around the same size as all of our other nice little shapes. Okay, cool. So now we can jump into the fun part of this tutorial, which is setting up the dynamics. Just gonna kind of scale stuff so that they're all around the same size, relatively the same size as each other. So, yeah. Cool. So file, save, and we can jump ahead now and into the fun dynamics parts of the tutorial. Okay, so let's grab all of these objects that we just created. We don't need these ones. Just the single piece of geometry. Hit Control C, Control N, and Control V. So we paste all those in. And now if we grab a cloner and make all of these a child of the cloner, you can see that we're cloning our objects. So this one's a bit big. Turn off your cloner, and if we just have a look at this, object by itself and go into coordinates. The scale is a bit off, so just round that off to 1, 1, and 1, and then just scale it back down to match up with the scale of everything else. And now if we turn back on the cloner, you can see that that's solved the issue for us. So we're going to clone this. We're going to set a number of clones here like that. Something like that. And we can decrease the spacing between each one. We just want to make sure that they're not touching off each other. Let's set the cloner as well from iterate to random. And we can grab a random effector as well. Make sure your cloner is selected, and then we can turn off the position. We just want to randomize the rotation. So I'm just randomly randomizing the rotation there. Make sure we have no intersections. And let's bring the amount of clones along the y-axis. And we can scale that down a bit as well so that there's not as much as a gap. Let's turn off the work plane. And let's just bring this up. So we can create now a cube. And let's scale this, go into our top view and make it the size that we want it to be. So we can go a bit bigger. So we can increase the amount of clones that we have along these axes here. And yeah, so that's looking pretty good. It's a lot of clones. We want to increase the height of this cube so that it can actually contain all of these when they fall in. Let's make sure that we hit NB in your keyboard and make sure that we increase the segments on the cube, because that's going to do a better job when it comes to simulations, calculating the simulation for us. More segments is going to equal a better sim. So we can make this cube editable, hit C in your keyboard, and we can go into our top view with the cube selected, go into polygon mode, and let's just rectangle select these top cubes. But we just want to make sure visible only is selected, so we're just going to grab that top bunch of them there. So I actually seems like I got a line here. I don't know why. Hit UL on your keyboard and just hold down Control to deselect that. Cool. So we can delete that now, and we can hit NA to turn off our lines. Go into object mode, grab our cube, right click, and we're going to grab a collider tag for this. And for our cloner, right click, and we're going to grab a rigid body tag. So now if we hit play, it's going to take a few seconds to kick in. Now, if your simulation is really slow, just do what I told you with the remesher. You can bring down the simulation time. You know, if you remesh all your objects, just bring down that mesh density. But it should be fine. So, okay, that didn't work, obviously. So we need to go into our collider and set the collider side to back, because we just want these to collide against the back of our polygons. This would be the front, and then these ones would be the back. Okay, cool. So we have that. We could probably scale down our box a bit. Just pause that. Oh, hang on. So let's scale down this cube a bit. Go into our top view and just kind of squeeze everything in a bit more. We are going to lose some off the edge, but don't worry about that. And we can probably bring up the number of clones along the Y here as well, just to kind of fill that box up even more. We're going to do a file save as well, because we haven't done that yet. I'm going to call this main, and bring this cloner up along the y-axis, and let's hit play on that. Just so that we're going to be able to fill this box up. So it's not going to be looking too empty. We are going to lose some clones, if that's fine. Okay, we're going to have to increase our frame range as well. So now we're getting a bit more, this box is looking a lot nice, a lot fuller, you might say. Okay, so we want to get the movement of our objects, you know, so they're swirling around. So let's just turn off our cloner, go into our top view, grab our spline pen tool, and we're just going to draw a spline. This is what's going to control direction of the swirls of our objects. So we can just kind of, you know, make something like this. Something like that, we'll say. And we can turn this to be from Bezier to B-spline. And we can just grab some points, go into point mode, and we can just kind of play around with this, with each of these points as we wish. Something like this. And just play around with those until you're happy with the actual shape of this. And we're going to grab a field force. So let's go and do that now. Simulate forces, field force, and we're going to tell the field force to use this spline to give it the direction. If we just scale, if we go into display and just scale this box up here, let's increase the line density as well up to the max. And if we bring this box up to match the size of our container, so you can see these little vectors here are showing the direction that our field force is going to be pushing objects in. We need to crank up the strength of this. We'll go up to like 400 maybe. And we can turn off the visibility of this as well, so that it's not in the way. Let's turn back on our cloner. And if we hit play, so you can see that we're getting some movement, but not a lot. Let's go into our field force here, click on the spline and crank up the offset here. And let's crank up the strength as well up to like maybe 800. Let's try that again. Now you can see we're getting a bit more activity. Probably 800 is a bit too much. We'll go down to 500. So, okay, so happy enough with the strength, but we don't want it to kick in immediately. Like the strength, we should probably set it to 0 until all of our clones are in the box. And then we can crank up the strength so that, you know, we're not going to lose most of them, which we are at the moment. So at around frame, we'll say 90, we'll go to. We can set a keyframe here. That'll be frame 0. Go ahead a few more keyframes. Oh wait, did we actually set a keyframe? Let's just delete track just in case we did. So at frame 90, we're going to set a keyframe. We're going to set this to 0, add a keyframe, and then we're going to go ahead a few frames, bring this up to 500, and add another keyframe. So we'll go back to frame 0. The strength is at 0. So nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no field force applied at the moment. Everything should fall into the box. Well, there's going to be a few objects that are going to fall off the edge. And then at around frame 90, it's all going to start kicking in and we're going to get our nice swirls. We can turn off the visibility of our cube. And now we have this kind of coolness going on here. So now what we can do is we can do a file save. Let's get just some colors for this. we can grab a new node material, and I'm just going to pick some colors here at random. I say at random, but I'm going to pick a few colors that I like. Something like that. Duplicate this, and then go for maybe a teal-ish or a blue. Grab another one and make this. Well, we've already done yellow. Green, but like less hideous green. Something like that maybe. And we'd have to get a red as well, because, you know, what would a simulation be without a hint of red in there? Pink. Okay, that's yeah, okay. We'll go with that anyway. These are the colors that I have selected, so we're gonna have to live with them. So let's just apply these at random to our objects here. And we could get a white as well, just to, you know, just to go crazy. Oh, we already have two applied to that. Get a white. And then for this one, we'll go yellow again. Okay. So that's looking pretty cool. We'll grab a dome light as well for some lighting. Turn off the background. I'm going to go into my content drawer, do a file save, go into my content browser here, and we'll have a look for HDRI, and we'll grab this one at random. And let's see what this is looking like. Let's change the output here to 1080 by 1920. And we might mess around with we'll grab a camera actually, first of all, which we have not done. We will mess around with the focal length. Something like that. Just get the camera angle right. And let's have a look and see what this looks like. So if we do a file save, go into your Redshift setup. If you don't already have one, that is looking mental. If you don't have one of those, just go into your window, or just go to Redshift and grab your Redshift render view. So let's have a look and see what this is looking like. Okay, so Cinema crashed on me. So what you can do if that is happening to you is go into your cloner and turn on render instance. So hopefully that will, I did try this and it did fix it, but I'm going to try it again and see how we get on. So let's play this now. And that sim should be running a lot more quicker. Now if we pause this and hit play, it should render. Okay, there we go. So with regards to the lighting, I mean, you can pick a different, a different HDRI. Let's see. HDRI. Let's try one of these studio lights setups. Let's try this one. Did I download it? That one I think looks a bit better. So yeah, we'll go with that. Could mess around with the coordinates here, like the rotation. Yeah, I think that actually makes a big difference. Again, this is kind of personal preference. So I'm going to leave mine like that. But yeah, that's pretty that's pretty much it, guys. So let's see. We don't want to render the whole thing. Well, you could, I suppose. You could render the whole like part where everything drops into the scene. Could look cool. Give this a while to kick in. So you might want to render out that part. I mean, if you are rendering that part, you might want to maybe change the, you know, the field force takes a bit long to kick in. So if we just kind of play this again. So it does take a while to kick in, you can see that. But yeah, I suppose rendering out that part could be kind of cool. You know, where everything's falling down. And then everything's fallen, and then we can kind of maybe bring the point at which the field force kicks in, we could bring that a bit closer to frame 80 maybe, or just closer to frame 0, I should say, depending on where you have it set up. So that all falls in. Then around frame 80, everything starts kind of moving around, which could look pretty cool. And if we just check this out in the render view, yeah, I think that's looking pretty nice. You could maybe add some depth of field. So if you go into your camera, go to optical, turn on bokeh, and bring the aperture down to like 1. And let's jump into a different view so we can see this here. You want to make sure that the camera is go into object mode so that we can grab this yellow circle and bring this to around here. So now you can see that the objects around the front are going to be blurred, the objects in the back slightly blurred, and then the objects in the middle, we want those to be in focus. So that could add a bit more coolness, I suppose, for lack of a better word. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm sure you guys know how to set this up for render. You're going to output all the frames, save it out as a PNG sequence, turn off multipass, select a destination, select PNG sequence. You could turn on the alpha channel if you wanted to have the background transparent. You could add like a cool solid background in After Effects. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So let's have a look at this. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. Again, you can mess around with the actual focal length. You know, if you kind of like bring that in, you're getting something a lot kind of, it's way different just messing with the focal length. Bring that right in. That looks pretty cool, actually, having it right close up. But yeah, play around the settings, guys. Play around your camera settings, see what you get. See if you can find something interesting. And please do share your stuff with me as well if you want to. You can grab me on Instagram, share stuff with me there. But that's the end of the tutorial. Thanks again for watching. Hope you guys learned a lot, and do let me know in the comments if you feel like something could have been done better. Any suggestions for tutorials, and if you have not yet subscribed, you might consider doing so. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.